I'm hitting go live, so, and then we'll hit record here. We are live.
I'd like to call the Economic Development and Airport Committee meeting to order for March 16th, 2021. Members present are Ms. Earlston, Mr. Ivy, and Tom Fellner. If we've had a chance to read the minutes of the February 16th regular meeting, I'd like to make a motion for approval if there are no corrections or additions.
Mr. President, I'll make the motion to approve the previous minutes. Sorry, Tammy.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'll
Make the motion. Okay.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion and it was seconded by Ms. Earlston. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries and the minutes of February 16th, 2021 are approved. Tonight, we have a couple of items on the agenda. If there are no additions, I'd like an approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Earlston makes the motion and Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Agenda is adopted as written. First discussion item is the appointment of Mr. Sorry, I lost my,
Miranda Jones,
thank you, Miranda Jones to, what council is she?
Tax Incentive Review Council. They review all like the enterprise zones and the CRAs, the commercial CRAs. They do not review the residential.
Do you know who else offhand is on that?
The
committee?
mayor,
Okay,
the mayor, and Joe Kleinite was the other representative from Gallion.
okay,
And it is now, well, they're now wanting to make it Miranda, so.
right. Miranda's the current president of Chamber of Commerce, is that correct?
Yeah, executive director, I don't know if,
Your director.
yeah.
Are there any questions or comments?
Dr. Fellner,
yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to move resolution 2021-8 to full council.
Thank you. Mr. Ivy
And I
makes
will-
the motion, Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries and resolution 2021-8 is going to go on to full council. Second one is the CRA Housing Council appointment resolution 2021-9. And Mr. Baldinger has agreed to remain on. So he's going to be, is there still an opening for council on this?
Yes, there is. On the ordinance you have in front of you, it has a blank that kind of needs filled in. So
By Tuesday?
if anybody wants to do it, it was 2 council members before,
Right.
but we don't, it doesn't have to be council members, and Gail agreed to stay on, and so
Okay. Does it have to be filled in by Tuesday?
it really should be if we want to pass it, because they currently have a application that they really kind of need to get all the members there ready for. So
Okay.
Aaron did
Julie,
raise
do-
his hand, so I'm not sure what he,
I've been thinking long and hard. I would be happy if we can't find anybody to volunteer for this position. It's something I haven't done before, and it would be interesting to learn about it. But if nobody would be willing to fill it, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ivy. I know we've got a lot on our personal plates, and so I appreciate the extension of any extra time that you might have. Julie, do we want, so you can have that blank now filled in with Mr. Ivy for Tuesday?
right, and you guys just approve it as amended and. we'll be ready to
Okay.
go.
So let's
Wanna
have
do-
a motion to pass resolution 2021-9 onto full council.
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance number 20, resolution number 2021-9 on to full council.
And I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
I will abstain, I guess. Is that the
Okay.
appropriate? Okay,
I think that's a safe way to go, and I appreciate it. So the motion passes 2 in favor and 1 abstention on for resolution 2021-9 onto full council. Next is ordinance 2021-22. It is an application for an FAA grant, and I'm going to let Ms. Ward take over from this.
Thank you, Dr. Fellner. This is the same grant we've discussed multiple times and for which we budgeted this year. This is the $1.2 million project at the airport to rehabilitate the runway.
And this resolution just is the grant application. It's not an acceptance of any award. You wrote the grant. I think we got copies of that in our packets. Is that correct?
Yes, you got a copy of the pre-application. So this ordinance would be to apply for and accept grant funds as we
Okay.
typically do.
So except if it's awarded, or is it,
Yes.
okay. Mr. Ivy or Ms. Earlston, any questions on this?
I think making a motion to move ordinance 2021-22 on to full council would be indicated.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion
And I will second that.
and seconded by Ms. Earlston. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0, and ordinance 2021-22 will move on to full. Next item is ordinance 2021.
Well, wasn't that special? We just lost the dog.
Mid-sentence, just.
Yeah,
disappeared.
mid-sentence. Well, good thing we're running a little ahead of time, so we needed something to waste time, I guess. But really, hopefully, oh, wait a minute. Is he coming back? Oh,
There
there
he
he
is.
is.
Ms. Ward, does this go hand in hand with the previous ordinance?
Wonder what's going on. We kind of lost you. Is everybody, can everybody hear or?
I can hear.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can hear.
Okay.
Nikki, does this
Oh,
ordinance?
Nikki got knocked out. She's coming back in.
Okay.
I think she might be back.
Okay, sorry, my apologies. I froze and then got booted out.
No worries. I did, it happened to me too. Is this current ordinance, does it tie back into the previous ordinance?
Yes, it does. And it's actually part of the $1.2 million total. So
Okay,
it's not a separate charge. It's included in that 1.2 million, but yes, it is related to that application.
okay. So it's the engineering for the runway improvement project.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? If not, I would like a motion to move ordinance 2021-23 onto full council for consideration.
And I will make a motion to move ordinance number 2021-23 onto full council.
Ms.
I'll
Earlston makes the
second.
motion and Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're going to, I didn't hear you, Ms. Earlston. I assume you said aye.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, the internet connection tonight is a little wonky. So the motion carries 3-0 to move ordinance 2021-23 onto full council. Julie, you had a couple other attachments with this. They weren't ordinances or resolutions. They were just information packet, the actual contract and the grant proposal, correct?
Yes, yes. The
Okay.
one was like, it showed how much was being charged by Richland Engineering.
Right.
And the other one showed basically the whole pre-application for the
Okay.
airport project, so.
So that concludes the discussion items. Are there any other business items this evening? If not, I'm going to set the next meeting time and date barring any predicament for April 20th, 2021 at 7 PM.
Okay.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Not sure how I'll do this because we can't start the meeting before 7:30, the
Oh,
other thing, but yeah.
Okay,
You guys were too quick.
sorry.
That's okay. All
Nah.
right. So. All
Well,
right.
I'd still like a
You said
motion. for
April.
adjournment.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a
tonight's
motion.
meeting.
Okay.
All in favor? Excuse me.
Aye.
Yes, the motions were had by Ms. Earlston and Mr. Ivy. All in favor's ayes, and the meeting is adjourned at 7:12. Julie, you could probably just stop recording, right?
Yeah, I'll stop recording, but it's still going live, so I'm not sure how to do that.
Okay, so everyone,
So,
let's put the mute button on.
yeah,
Nope,
everybody put the
that's
mute
the
button
same
on.
place.
Yeah. I'll just mute everybody, so.
You didn't mute me, Julie.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't need to be muted, but
Yeah.
are we being broadcast on Facebook though right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, please mute me.
For everyone just joining us, we concluded the Economic Development and Airport Committee meeting, and we will be starting the Committee of the Whole at 7:30 PM. just want to let everyone know the committee of the whole will be starting at 7:30. So if you're just now joining us, please hold on and we'll be starting here in about 4 minutes.
Kind of nice. It's still light out there, guys.
Exactly.
Itt 7 óra 30 perc.
There. Okay, did that work?
Getting people in and everything else. So I think
Can you hear me?
yep, we can. We are still live.
Okay, thank you.
So.
All right. Thanks, Julie.
No problem.
I will leave you to your meeting. Boy, that's frustrating.
How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good. Is that Kenny?
Yes.
Oh, I'm doing great. Enjoying the weather. Can't wait to be having these things outside.
Where'd he go?
10 more degrees and I'm outside on the backswing doing this. So
There you go.
Okay, I gotta get Mike in here. Apparently he couldn't find his buttons.
I always have my button.
Hi, Mike.
Hey there, Ken.
Evening, Michael.
Good evening, Doc. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. How are we getting the rest in, Julie?
I think they're here.
Yeah, I see them. They're few.
I think they're all here.
Okay.
I think all the committee members are here, so. Pretty sure one.
Julie,
Yeah,
the mayor said he's trying to get back in. Can you
Oh.
see him there?
I do not see him. Okay. Well, I think apparently Spectrum might be having some issues tonight.
Oh,
Okay, so you cannot see him trying to get back in.
No, he's not coming. I don't have a link for him to come back in yet.
Okay,
Well, I'd rather us start late than we couldn't start early, so hopefully we get everybody in. 'Cause
okay,
if he's
give me a
having
minute
trouble,
to
other
get back in
people might
touch.
have trouble as well.
I was
So,
gonna say, definitely, we need to make sure everybody's here
yeah,
that wants to be here, that is.
I got David's iPhone, so I'm not sure if that's David Rogers. So, yep.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Hey, Nikki, have him like go out and try to come back in maybe. So. Isn't it great technology when it fails?
Always.
Oh, I gotta fix my other thing too.
Too many computers.
Oh, shoot.
For the 2020 process, over 600 people gathered. They talked about how we would change our community.
Sorry. Hello? So I don't know if I can mute everybody. I have to go in and then I have to get everybody turned on.
I didn't even see your lips move, Gary. Who's your dummy?
Ventriloquist. I am. I'm letting the secrets out of the bag right now.
Who's your dummy?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Somebody's got a ticked off cat.
It's me. Actually, it's my daughter's.
Oh, no, it's yours, Michael.
Oh, yeah, right.
My dog is running all over the house trying to find your cat.
Oh, is that right?
I have to keep it muted because he's like losing it, trying to find that cat.
Uh-oh. Sorry.
That's okay.
The lighting all right?
Yeah.
I'm back in, Julie.
Julie, you're muted. Oh,
I saw to let you in, so so that was good. Oh, good, he's back. So,
Had
so.
spec problems because I had internet issues beyond just the laptop. So
Well, I think everybody is, like Nikki got bumped off, Doc Fellner got bumped off, so I'm hoping other people aren't having issues. That's why I didn't want to stop the live stream. I was afraid I wouldn't get it started again. So,
yeah.
So whenever they're ready to start, Mr. Richard. So. Oh, is he muted now? Where'd he go? Oh, Mr. Richard's gone. So
sorry about that, everyone. I had to take care of a feline problem. I don't want to drive somebody's canine crazy. Julie, are we all here? I believe.
looks like it.
I don't see some faces, but that's fine.
If they're black, you won't see their faces.
Right, I know that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we're all here as council, then we'll go ahead and get started. Everyone, welcome tonight to the Committee of the Whole. As you can tell, I do not look like anything like Carl Watts. As per the council rules, the president pro tem presides over this type of committee. So having said that, I would like to say, I want to take and welcome everyone. Julie, go ahead and do the roll call of council members.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Ms. Alt.
Here.
Mr. Bodkins.
Here.
Ms. Earlston.
Here.
Dr. Fellner.
Here.
Mr. Ivy.
Here.
Mr. Richard.
Here.
Mr. Triplett.
Here.
I'd also like to welcome our mayor, Mr. O'Leary. We also have present the Thomas Palmer, our law director, the city auditor, Gail Baldinger, and also I'd like to welcome the port, several members of the Port Authority. I could run your names through. We've got Eric Kent here, I believe, tonight. Gary Frankhouse, Chad Miller, Rod Steiger. Yeah, there you are, Rod. Debbie Garverick, I'm going to massacre that, sorry. And finally, Brian Trish, who is one of the newest members. Welcome tonight to the meeting. Like to now go to the approval of the agenda. We actually only have one thing on the agenda tonight. So if I could have a motion to approve that, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Mr. Bodkin makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda has approved. We'll go right into the meat of the meeting, so to speak. This is a discussion concerning the Free Center primarily for council to ask questions of the Port Authority concerning this project. The thought process for tonight, though, would be is if we could kind of stay in the parameters of the construction funding, the construction and infrastructure. Tomorrow night, we'll have a subsequent meeting also where we can focus in on the operational end of it. I think that works very well to give a full and complete opportunity to ask and answer any of the questions out there. I kind of like to ask now I know the port would like to make a statement before we start in here, and I do understand they had included a video. I wanted to ask council members if they wanted to view the video or not. So
What's the video pertain to?
I will let one of the port individuals answer that. Gary, can you answer that for Ken? Mr. Bodkins?
It relates to the Free Center.
The what, sir?
The Free
Free
Center.
Center.
Ken.
Okay.
So it's a short. So is everybody want to see that or not? I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Okay.
Yes.
So I will kind of turn this over a little bit to the port for that presentation, and then we'll move on to the question and answer section.
Mike, this is Debbie Garverick. And if it's okay, I'll kind of start with an introduction and lead into the video.
Okay.
All right. Start by saying good evening to everyone and thank you to the city for inviting the Galleon Port Authority to meet with City Council tonight. Our board is honored to serve the city as an avenue for and an extension for the city's economic development. We have been together operating as a board for about a year and a half. And I have to say that I have never served on a board that had more energetic and dedicated individuals than this board does. And it has been my pleasure to serve with them and to see people much younger than I am who are so invested in our community. In the time that we've been operational, we've certainly focused on the Free Center, but that has not been our only focus. And we have administered an emergency loan fund for the city to get monies into the hands of our local businesses that were harmed by COVID. We're currently working on developing some much needed single-family housing, specifically in the Wrenchville area at this time. And we're also currently looking for a part-time director to take on some of the day-to-day operations of our port. So we do have several focuses, several irons in the fire. Tonight our focus is the Free Center project. And we do have a short video, and it is very short, that we'd like to show you. And I'll ask Julie if she would bring that up for us at this time.
Can people see that?
20 process, over 600 people gathered. They talked
Oh,
about
wait a
how
minute,
to
hold
change
on.
our community in the next 20 years.
Can people see that yet?
No.
No, we can't see it, Julie.
Okay, let me try it again. Best laid plans. I think I got it now.
the 2020 process. You know, over 600 people gathered. They talked about how we would change our community in the next 20 years, and written in the quality of life as a accomplishment by 2020 was to build an indoor sports complex along US 30 because of its logistics and ease of getting in and out, so that we could bring people to the area.
Yeah, think about what it takes to create a center in a small community like Crawford County. You had to have everybody at the table. And without the partnership leading that effort, that wouldn't have happened. You had business at the table, you had government at the table, you had nonprofits at the table, you had individuals at the table.
And this is one that has taken a long time because there are so many things that go into the studies to acquire property, to raise the financing. But it's easy to do when the end goal is, you know, you're going to bring about 25,000 people to an area. You're going to fill hotel rooms 26 out of 52 weeks a year. The money is anticipated on average in the first 5 years of $1.9 million of economic impact per year. I mean, that's huge for this area. And that's a game changer, because when I say, yeah, we're 41,000, but you can add 25,000 to that because we have this industry that we're focused on.
Thank you, Julie. And I just want to wrap up my introduction to say the Port Authority sees many opportunities ahead for Gallion and for Crawford County. We're excited about this time of change and progress in our community. We are continuing to explore ways to revitalize our town. And tonight we are very thankful for the opportunity to address some of your questions about the Frieze Center. Judging by the video, Gary may have to fill in some of the blanks in that because he got kind of quiet there in the middle. But now I'd like to turn it over to Mike or whoever is going to guide our discussion. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Debbie, for the presentation. I'm sure I can speak for council members that they appreciate the short introduction. I have a question for everyone, though. Council members, do we want to start as if you have questions specifically, start with those for each member, or do we just want to have an open back and forth of exchange? It's up to you what you want to do. Well, just start asking questions. That's fine. Tammy?
Julie, do you have the questions that were compiled? Are we planning on using those at all tonight?
I'd send them to everybody. I can put them up, so.
Well, I didn't know. Mike, do you know, were we planning on using those tonight or?
Well, I think that those probably questions, as we all have received, would probably be encapsulated in many of our own questions as council members. So, though, if you see one that we don't ask, obviously, let's definitely ask that one. What, you know what I mean, Tammy? So,
I agree. That's we'll just move this format, you know, right along in a good fashion to start with those.
Okay, I would say whoever has a question for the port, fire away.
Those questions were sent to the port members as well, so.
Okay.
Anybody out there?
So I guess I can start since we're kind of talking about the building and those plans. Whenever I was looking over the pro forma, I just want to make sure that I have a good understanding. So it lists in kind of the first couple of pages that there's going to be 3 basketball courts and that the 6 volleyball courts will go over those 3 courts. And that there's going to be 1 soccer turf with the batting cages over that turf. So that's just a pretty general question, but is that it for the sports area in the complex. So we've got 3 basketball courts, 6 volleyball courts, 1 turf. Is that right?
Here, I'll jump in. You are correct. The turf area allows for expansion, though. Many sports can utilize that, from softball to baseball. There's definitely indoor games that are now played. There's plans to have netting, which protects the 3-lane walking track that goes around as well. That was not included in your description. So that's a pretty complete description of what it will entail.
Okay. And then the next question that I had regarding the building space is this flex space that's listed in the plan. I noticed that that kind of made up for a big portion of the facility with the different mezzanines and the team rooms. I noticed that there's only 2 restrooms listed in that. Is that correct?
Actually, no, there's 2 bathrooms on the mezzanine level, and then there's 2 bathrooms on the main floor with unisex bathrooms that we were looking at placing. They were going to be moved around a little bit because we're in the design phase of that. So the bathrooms are adequate for the building code.
Okay. And then for the second floor mezzanine, that looks like it took up about 10% of that flex space. What would that be used for? Is that just viewing of sports, or could that be used as like a multi-purpose area? What would that look like?
So there's been a couple discussions. If you're talking about just the mezzanine in general, you kind of lost me with flex space, unless you're just calling that mezzanine flex space.
Well, in the pro forma, I can't remember on what page it was on. That's how it's listed. It's underneath that flex space portion. That's why I brought that up.
Okay.
It says that was 7,500 square feet of second floor mezzanine. So that just seems like a lot. I wasn't sure what that was going to be utilized for.
Well, mostly it's for viewing. And the main reason for that is from a business model, customer satisfaction is key. And if you've gone to many of the facilities that host tournaments, a lot of times the people forgotten are the parents and the spectators. This model is modeled after a facility down in Coshocton called Kids of America. And I've been there. It really adds a nice feature. It's where volleyball teams can get away, drop down their equipment, gather as teams, parents sit. We have right now been considering, and it's in the plans, to have movable bleachers up there. So they move towards the front where the viewing area is, and actually the baseball batting cages could potentially drop down from that area. So it could be a batting cage area during the week when you don't have tournaments.
Okay. And then the team rooms, is that like the locker rooms? So is that where the players would go to get ready?
So the bathrooms on the first floor have some locker space, and there's a curtain area where we kind of divide it for athletes and for visitors. But yeah, that's what that is.
Okay. And then my last question kind of with that is, there's been some discussion about using it kind of as a community space that businesses could rent out or that people could use. And I saw in the budget part that it looks like that's accounted for. What area would we be talking about for use of that? Would that be the training rooms, or where would
it could be several places. Actually, the turf area is probably the area that's most likely used. We've actually been looking at some materials that don't have the pellets. One reason is we don't want them tracking all over the place. Another reason is that it has a more dense gauge on that material. So you can set up tables, you could have job fairs, you could have large groups like Avita or Ohio Mutual that have more than 500 employees. Currently, there's no place in the county to meet with that large of a group. I mean, they're having to go to Columbus and the like. So probably what makes the most sense is the turf area for big gatherings. There is more of a, I would call a party room, which would probably have 40 to 45 people. We've been meeting for social distancing at Pizza Hut. And if you think of the side room, it's a lot like that room would be for parties and that kind of thing.
All right. So those were kind of my questions just on the actual facility building portion. Thank you for answering those.
Yep. Thanks, Kara.
Anybody else would like to have a question to start out? Okay, I'd like to ask whoever from the port. I was curious, first off, why is the design the way it is, in the sense of just encompassing the basketball / volleyball and a turf side, which unless my math is bad, the turf side is not really a full-size soccer field. I'm curious why it seems to be only limited to a couple of sports. If this is going to be something that the Galleon community would be able to use because of the issue of seniors as well as the middle-aged individuals as well as the younger group. If anybody would like to answer that for me, please.
I don't think it's limited to those sports at all. I think that that's the primary visual you get from obviously the spaces. So the biggest reason for the basketball, volleyball, and turf setup are that they provide the most likely source of revenue from travel sports. So volleyball, especially, and soccer would be providing the majority of those weekends that we're talking about when you're talking about revenue from travel sports. However, as we've mentioned, we feel like this facility can be used for almost any sport that people want to participate in Galleon. The court side could be turned into spaces for pickleball. You certainly could have, football teams play on the turf side, probably not, full games, but at least 7-on-7, some drills, practices for sure. There's netting available for baseball, either to, have practice or just batting cages. I think this is also a potential facility for wrestling to use. We'd obviously have to look at purchasing of additional equipment for that, but any sport really could be played here, and I do think that it does offer potential benefits for all age groups, particularly the youth in Galleon, but all age groups.
So my kind of just to follow up on that a little bit, whenever I was looking at that Kids America, because I've heard you guys talk about that a couple of times, whenever I looked at the different kind of sports that they have in a really similar facility, they had the t-ball, baseball, softball, soccer, flag football, volleyball, cheerleading, and tumbling, as well as fitness classes and aerobics. So I think that their space does look pretty similar to what we're looking at. And whenever I was originally thinking about it, I didn't really think about the cheerleading and tumbling, but I think that will be a big area that we can use. Whenever I look at theirs, it looks like really the only difference is the tennis courts and the fitness class area, but we just redid the tennis courts. So I see kind of maybe why we left those out. And then whenever we were talking about the fitness classes not wanting to be in competition with the YMCA, I can see also why those were left out. But Mike, looking at this Kids America, I did see kind of all of the different activities and tournaments that they do have there. And it's much more than just kind of what I had originally thought too, just the basketball and volleyball.
And Kara, to sort of follow up with your comment and going back to Michael's question, I don't think this is, the residents shouldn't look at this as a better, bigger YMCA. We have a YMCA facility for the citizens. And, to my recollection, there is a fee involved with activities that the Y encompasses, at least a membership and things like that. And not that this would be not open to the citizens. I don't foresee, and maybe I'm limiting myself in the view. I don't see people moving other than maybe a running track. Although you met the idea of pickleball was mentioned. Still, those organizations, I don't know if free is a good word to use it. This is supposed to be based on a business model, not, and intended for the citizens of Galion. I don't know, I just wanted to kind of make that clear, because that's, looking at the questions that came up a fair amount of times.
Yeah, I think just to maybe add on to that, some of those overlaps that you see, whether it be pickleball or even the basketball or volleyball with the YMCA, I see this more as a complement to what they already offer from a space standpoint. I mean, I haven't had direct conversations with the YMCA, but I'm sure that they might not love to have some extra gym space to be able to utilize at certain points of time, especially when they have a swim meet and basketball or kicks and licks, or whatever they got going on out there. Try to park at the Y at one time. But myself and several of my friends, we like to play old man basketball, and it's hard for us to find gym space sometimes. So, this would be a great facility for, us as members of the community to be able to reach out to and try to use.
To piggyback on Doc Fellner's and Chad's thing, though, the question comes up in my mind is this a facility for the citizens of Galion, since even though you haven't asked for it officially, you're wanting to use their money to build this thing, or is this more geared to a business model of traveling sports for Crawford?
Let me jump in there, Mike. So when this conversation started back in 2014, we had hired, and you asked for it today, the National Association of Sports Commissions. Don Schumacher was the gentleman, came up here, spent a couple days. Tom and I and a few other people traveled to Cincinnati to witness some of the things he wanted to show us. But one of the things he was dead set on was, if this isn't used locally, I'm not going to recommend you doing it, because travel sports is just icing on the cake. The key is you have to have local usage. So when you look at it, the facility is really underbuilt for size, and that was intentional, because we have 3 wonderful new school buildings within, a 5-mile range of this: Crestline, Colonel Crawford, and Galion. And the idea is that when we have big enough tournaments, we'll hope to be able to use those facilities. There'll be maybe play-in games with the championship at the Freeze Center. And the idea is that we'll work in conjunction with those schools, and we'll be able to provide comp time for them Monday through Fridays to have space. There's several people on this meeting tonight, myself, Chad, Eric, that have had kids in the 2nd and 3rd grade, 4th and 5th grade basketball. And basically you have time on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 7:30. It's not a formula for academic success. It's not a formula for family success. But my belief is that working closely with those school districts, there won't be costs for kids. They'll be coming in, they'll be using it. It's a facility for the community. So even though travel sports is spoken, right now there's only 26 weekends that are planned of the 52, in addition to Monday through Friday every week. So it fully intentioned to be a community asset. Now, the word free is interesting, because last time I checked, there's no such thing as free. Somebody's paying for it. Tax dollars will be paid if it is free. It is a business model. Thank you, Dr. Fellner, for mentioning that. And I think that's important to note. But definitely we want community citizens there at a fair price. And that needs to all be worked out in the operational piece.
Well, just to piggyback, Gary, then you're telling me that you've already gotten the sponsorship or support of the Galion school system on this, as well as some other business interest in town?
I've talked, Chad and I both met with Jen Allerding within the last 2 months. I've met with the superintendent prior. I've met with the YMCA board on several occasions. So we've dotted our I's, crossed our T's as it relates to that. Details need to be worked out, just like the details of the operational plan need to be worked out. But the overall vision is there.
Well, let me ask you this, because once you told me that you've talked to them, yet at this level, we're talking that very soon you're going to be wanting to submit a request to council for $5 million worth of parks money, which is the freeze money. So my question again is, I understand that you've talked to them, but talking and having support of them, in my mind, is two different things. Not to mention is there, well, that's going to get in another conversation that we're going to have here shortly. But again, during those conversations with the schools, was it like we're supporting this and we're behind it, or are we more of a, well, we'll sit back and see what you guys are going to do?
I think everybody wants to, obviously, most of the decision resides with city council. There's a great importance on the freeze involvement. We believe that the will reads that it fits, it meets the criteria. And I think really all you can have is a lot of discussions. I think we're very fortunate to have raised the 1.2 million without the support of. I think the lack of support has hindered the forward progress. And to be able to have those detailed conversations, because, I know tomorrow we're going to talk operations, but I don't think there's much to talk about. It's in the pro forma. We hired the best industry in the country to put that together. It's conservative in nature. Expenses are overestimated, revenues are underestimated. There's going to be ebbs and flows. There's probably revenue to be gained that's not there, some expenses that'll be a little higher, but they're the best experts out there. Having built $1 billion worth of these facilities throughout the country, they know the ins and the outs of it. So until we have the momentum and support of city council, most of this is discussion. It gets real, and those discussions lead to commitments. So I think we're right on track and point of where we need to be. It's really just getting the commitment of council.
Mike, I got a question.
Go ahead, Mark.
Gary, you just mentioned the will, okay? And nobody knows what Mr. Freeze thought back in the late 60s before he died, but do you suppose that rec center, as the will calls it, is for recreation center for the city of Galion, or recreation center as a business? I
don't know, Mark.
Who knows?
Well, I would think that he would want something that was sustainable, and just to have a building without a business model behind it's not sustainable. So, I guess we'll guess at that, but I think it makes sense to have a business model behind it, so that way we can sustain it.
The YMCA was built for the community, and then the YMCA got where you got to be rich to belong to YMCA.
I don't know about that, Mark.
Well, it costs a lot of money, Gary, and a lot of people don't have that kind of money.
Well, life costs a lot of money, and you've heard me say this before. I think the more we don't make decisions like this, we continue to cost our citizens more and more, because cost of police, fire, roads, water, sewer, that's your numerator, and it keeps going up, and it's being divided by the number of people, which keeps shrinking. So I think it's time we make some changes and lessen the burden that we're putting on our citizens with business models that bring people to the community, that generate economic development impact. That's the key, and that's why we're driving this thing.
Anybody else have any questions right now? I've got one. Go ahead, Tammy.
Well, I just want to make sure that some of the questions that people asked and that was sent to to the Port Authority get addressed as well. I know that some of them will with our questions, but I'm trying to look at them. Are the state and the federal monies time restricted? Was one of the questions.
Yes, we don't have federal monies at this point in time. We do have money from a state grant that we already received an extension on through June of this year. one of those things that I'm sure if we've got some forward momentum going and have some type of concrete action plan in place for the actual construction, we could go back to the administrators of that and ask for an additional extension.
Okay, that was just one of them that I wanted to address. You go ahead, Mike, and I'll keep pulling up some if I come across some that look like they haven't been addressed yet.
Okay, well, that kind of piggybacks on, I'll piggyback on you, Tammy. I know you mentioned, Gary especially, was that, and Chad, you just alluded to it, was that you have received so much money already. Could you kind of go over that real quick to refresh my memory?
Yeah, I guess I can take that one. So there was a state capital bill awarded in the amount of $500,000 as a reimbursable grant as expenditures are made. In addition, the board is in receipt of donations from Timken in the amount of $200,000. It's already been donated and paid from the Timken Foundation, as well as 2 annual contributions from the amount that was committed by the Community Foundation. And I believe that was another 500 total, correct, Gary? That's over 10 years. So we received the first 2 installments of that commitment as well. So that's the 1.2 million that's been raised thus far.
Well, let me correct you. I guess I'm just a good old boy, but that last grant you just said is for 500,000, but that's over 10 years. Unless my math went south with my young age here, that translates into $50,000 a year. I'm curious, how can that be factored as a part of the construction part of this? I would think that would be
actually, Mike, that's very common. This would be the same way as we would receive money from other donations or probably sponsorships of the facility. So we would actually secure a lower cost bridge loan to provide the upfront cost, and then those dollars would be used to pay that loan back.
With interest.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Also, question would be then too is, okay, we'll say that. So you've got a 1.2 right now. What is the current projected cost to build this facility? Because I've seen numbers all over the board.
8 óra 15 perc.
Anybody want to take that one? Except for the
Yeah, Mike, I'll take that one. We project right now the total construction cost around $8.7 million. In addition, there are infrastructure costs, which right now are looking to be about $1.5 million. We also have about a little over $1.4 million for operating costs to cover shortfalls in those first 3 years, and also to ramp up the start of the business. So if you add all those together, that's about $11.7 to $11.8 million. The building itself about 8.7.
Okay, but those other costs are a tangible on that. On your estimate for the proposed or the 8.5, does that include a I don't know what they're calling it nowadays. We used to call it a contingency fund for basically overrides or overruns.
Yeah, Mike, there's about a 3% contingency included in that, which is about $240,000.
Now, is that common? Is that common at this level, though?
It's fairly common for a new building. If this were a addition, then it would probably be 5 or 6%. But being a new building, I think the biggest unforeseen would be something to do with the foundation. So I think 3% is pretty reasonable.
Well, I just want to, yeah, because years ago, it used to be like 6 for a major construction, which, let's face it, this is a major construction. So that's why I was kind of questioning that low percentage for any. And to piggyback on that, what would be the, given the fact that we are now in a situation due to the virus of having explosive material costs, where is that going to factor in on your costing? Because from what I'm gathering from an earlier question answer is that you're still tweaking the plans to this thing.
Yeah, the building is mostly a pre-engineered metal building. It's mostly steel. We have heard that steel prices are escalating just a little bit right now, but not too much. Wood prices are through the roof right now, and there's going to be very little wood in this building except for the hardwood floor in the gym space. So the economic impact on construction materials doesn't look like it's going to affect us too much right now.
Okay, well, my question goes back to then what we were, Chad mentioned then would be, you currently have 1.2, and again, unless my math went south, you're quite a ways, even with the 5 billion from the freeze, you're still quite a ways from putting a shovel in the ground, in my estimation. Where are the, I'm assuming you folks have had discussions with local businesses as well as others for support, and you're not indicating any in that regard.
Mike, there is a statement, it's called a source and use statement, and we've got that built out for the number that Eric has shared. Several sources, vibrancy funds, DSA tourism monies. There is a capital campaign factored in there where there will be a discussion with not just businesses, but local individuals, even outside of Galion, that is going to be less than $1 million. And I think that's attainable. We've seen in this community in the past, we've raised, the Y itself raised about 1.2 million when they did their renovations 6-7 years ago. And then with the building of the St. Joe's facility, I think that was well over $1 million as well. So with that source and use, we have a plan. There's a couple larger institutes that have verbally said to me upon the city council's approval that their $500,000 sponsorship ask is more believable. Because they'll have the confidence of the freeze monies. So we've got the plan to work, but you know, it's that first domino. I call it the golden domino. I mean, that's really the key.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Okay, so I have a couple questions and then I have another one I want to pull off of our survey. Did you guys, I don't want to get this wrong. Was it a Jobs Ohio grant that you guys applied for the infrastructure?
At this point, we have not applied for anything.
Oh.
It's part of that source and use statement that I just talked about.
Okay, so I'm not, but that was something that we were, or that you guys had talked about with the infrastructure for that, correct? Okay, okay. So a lot of this is based on the freeze bond, and then what we would make off what is left in the freeze would still be benefiting of the city. How would it play out if the remaining freeze money left no longer is making that 6% or drops, below that? how will that affect then the city, or how will we adjust with that for the payback and everything?
I think that there's a couple things you have to think about there. So, that percentage that was given was to, try to estimate the annual return that fund has received for as much history as we could gather. But, every person on this Zoom knows that that's not every year that the fund returns that rate of return. So, my question would just sort of throw that back on council a little bit. What happens now when the freeze fund doesn't return 6%? I'm assuming you still take a draw if you want to off of the fund and still use it for parks projects. So that scenario already plays out year after year after year. There's years that the fund makes money and there's years that the fund doesn't make money. The difference in this scenario is that you would be committing a portion of that draw to the debt service if this plan that we've proposed can go through. So you would run into that same scenario regardless of if you commit to this project or not. There's going to be years where the Freeze Foundation doesn't make money. And do you still take a draw to pay for parks projects? I think the answer to that is yes. So in those years, you would be reducing the principal balance of the fund. If the fund right now, your draw is 5.14%. So any year that the freeze fund doesn't earn more than 5.14% right now, and you take 5.14%, you're reducing the principal balance of that fund. So it happens already. The difference here is that you're committing a portion of that draw to the debt service.
Right. I guess the concern would be if we wouldn't be able to receive enough to pay on the debt service.
Right. So, I could try to do the calculations for you, but the value of the fund itself would have to decline dramatically for that to not happen, because don't forget in the proposal that we have out there, the $5 million is still in the freeze fund. So that balance is not going away. You're not reducing it from the current 11.9 down to 6.9. It's still going to be 11.9. It's just, in our scenario, $5 million is a bond that they've bought from us, and it's going to give them a 3.5% return. So they're still making money off that. So basically, you're taking 3.5% of that $5 million and giving it back to them every year to pay for the bond.
So it would have to be quite a drastic drop in that 6%.
Anything's possible. It could happen. Absolutely. 100%. It could happen though with the whole fund balance could go to zero tomorrow, and then we wouldn't have any money for anything. So yes, that is a real risk. But I would just, caution you that this it's in itself, while it does have some impact on the investment portfolio, when you look at the freeze fund itself and how their financial advisors have invested their funds traditionally, they have held a significant portion in fixed income assets, which would be a bond. So they might not be buying a Port Authority bond, but they might be buying a City of Toledo bond or City of Columbus bond or something like that. So they're already dedicating a portion of the investment to that, because that's, in general seen as a lower risk. But I think it fits with their overall strategy. We haven't talked to the trustees of the freeze yet or their advisors. That's something that we would like to do, obviously, to see that they can do this as well.
Then just to pull a question off the survey, how have you guys, do you have any plans, I guess, for marketing the Uptown? They were asking about how this is going to benefit the Uptown, and are there any marketing plans for Uptown?
Yeah, so we actually had 2 video sessions with the chamber. I think most of you were able to join that too, and this question came up on there a lot. I think that we see there is a great opportunity to do that either through some type of information that's there at the center itself for the out-of-town visitors that are traveling on the weekends, whether it's just an information center or even electronic version of that where advertisements are able to be displayed. We've we're currently discussing options for, things like, food vending, whatever you want to call it, for concessions, I guess would be the better word, for those days. And, I personally believe that there's some partnerships to be had with some of those businesses that are uptown Galleon. I think that the additional traffic in town would be a plus for the uptown area. One of the concerns that the chamber had is, obviously many of the businesses may have reduced or even no hours on some of the weekends. So it would be incumbent upon us to make sure that we're in constant communication with the chamber to let them know when we are having these events, when we expect a large number of out-of-town guests, so they can be prepared for that.
Chad, kind of to go off of that, I just wanted to bring up that in the pro forma, I saw that in years 1 through 5, the concession sales are estimated at between 124 and 180,000, with an additional 37 to 54,000 in alcohol. So would those be concession sales there, or would that be? So you're expecting years 1 through 5 between 150 and 230,000 in food and alcohol sold at the center, as opposed to?
Yeah, Gary, you want to take that one?
I don't think alcohol is necessarily part of the equation. Most recently, in one of the design meetings, and Rod.
That's where I pulled it from. That's why I wrote it down: 37,000 year 1, up to 54,000 in year 5, and that's in addition to the concessions.
No, I know it's there, but what I'm saying is, like, I don't think we've talked about that as a group. That's just traditionally what happens around the country from the SFA pro forma standpoint. But what we've been most recently talking about in the design meetings is an enhanced, what I'm going to call kitchen. And Rod knows more specifically the name of the terminology, but I was over at Winford's new high school, and they put one of these pieces of equipment in that creates an ability to cook French fries and hamburgers and chicken tenders, which gives a more higher revenue ticket item. So that's where our discussions have been, along those lines of creating those revenues, mostly related to food, not alcohol.
Is beer in or out? Mike, I have a couple questions. I've been quiet almost an hour and a half. I want to go back to Tammy's previous question, and I want to say real quickly on the alcohol thing that is in the pro forma. That illustrates some of the work that needs to be done, I hope beginning tomorrow, on developing an operating plan that is not totally driven by this consulting firm. On the issue of that you were raising, Tammy, one of the ways that you could guard against having a year when the revenue didn't come from the foundation sufficient to pay the port so that they could pay the bonds. That would be to establish a reserve fund early on in years when we're exceeding that, so that when you had a couple of bad years, that you would be able to reach into the reserve fund and not be able to make those bond commitments. So there are ways to deal with a couple of years in which the revenue, the income off the fund is, isn't sufficient to pay the debt. However, I want to say one more thing, Mike, then I'll go mute for a second. What we need to remember, our history with the foundation in doing parks projects is 5 years, and that is 1/4 of the time that is being proposed that is committed to this bonded debt. So, we're talking about 20 years. So I think that you want to keep that in perspective. And so that really, I think, was the main point. I think the issues of the gap in funding, that someone else on council probably asked that, the difference between the 12 million that Eric subtotaled for us and the 5 million that we're being asked for. How is that money going to be raised? And I do agree with the contention that Gary made that it's hard to raise money in some of the forms, like from what might be larger foundations, if the first question that's used to put the person at arm's length is, well, how much does the city have involved in it? So I absolutely agree with that. If you expect the port or other port and other representatives from the community to go out and talk to these people, I think it's hard to do that without the 5 million committed. And then that, I believe that gives a better chance at some state grants that are being proposed in that sources and uses, but have not been applied for or secured. So I hope that covers a handful of things I've just been dying to say here. So I'll just stop at that, see if that generates any more discussion.
Okay, thank you. Doc Feldner?
Yes, when the city, throughout the years of fiscal emergency, how much did we receive from the freeze fund for parks? Mr. O'Leary?
We didn't receive anything. The arrangement.
Exactly. And so my point to the people that, and I know that the freeze money during the 20-year would be potentially significantly less. We received nothing and we're indebted to the freeze fund for our well-being of the city for 15 years. And it's only recently that we've been able to recoup our share according. So and I feel like this isn't the freeze fund giving the city 5 million. It's investing. Rod had a great presentation in a finance committee meeting, and I'm going to hope that he sort of briefly goes over that again, how we're using freeze funds, but we're not eliminating or depleting freeze funds for the long haul. I know that it's a hit, but I think this is an investment and not a bailout. It's not a handout. It's not a gift that we're using, if that's possible.
Well, Doc, the only thing I have, I agree with you to some extent that, we went quite a long ways without the benefit of the freeze money. Well, it did benefit the community given the circumstances involved.
But not for its intended use.
Right. Oh, yeah, exactly. But now that we've gotten over that hill, so to speak, I think we need to be very mindful of the opportunity or the lack of opportunity if we decide to do this, because essentially this will eliminate the opportunity for an entire generation of galleon kids. We're talking 20 years for now. True, the interest rate, the way this would be paid as it progresses down the line, interest would be subsequently less because of the fact that the owed amount would be less. But you're still paying a principal of at least probably $250,000 a year to repay that $5 million in 20 years. That's just the base.
I disagree with the statement that it eliminates an entire generation. I don't think that's a fair statement. I think that the first 5 years of any business is a rough road. I will grant you that, but I think, my opinion is that we will see that this center grows and pulls its own weight after a while. And I do not believe, I can't back it up with any numbers, but I think that it's unfair to imply that it's a generation that will go unassisted. And we're still going to get money yearly from the freeze fund. It may not be money that can produce splash parks every year, but it will be spent wisely for the park maintenance and improvements. Anyway.
Dr. Fellner, thanks for saying that. I really do appreciate that, because I think one of the things that's overlooked, and we've talked about this in the past, but not together, so I want to repeat it, is the facilities pro formas, and I'm sure Karis has seen this, between years 6 and 10 make on average about $112,000 of profit. And then years 10 through or 11 through 20, it's more in the range of 170,000. So we're discussing these numbers without ever even talking about the port being an extension of the city. We're meant to be arm in arm working together. We are the economic development arm. So our ability to carve out from those years of profitability to inject into maybe additional spending for the parks to make sure that those generations don't miss out on the great things that have happened, from tennis courts to basketball courts to the greater playground. We recognize those things. And we're not looking to take and hoard. We're looking to take and grow this community, as well as jobs are created. So more income tax dollars is flowing into the city, more of the 0.11. So I really struggle with that statement. I appreciate Doc's comment.
Hey, Mike, could I jump back in for a second? I want to make a couple points. The 5 million will cost the park's interest over that 20 years about 7 million. That's just a number. 7 million of things that are going to be going to pay for that would otherwise have been going to the parks. Another thing over the long haul is you want to think about, it's just to put it in perspective, and that is in the early years, let's say the first 5 years, the 180 to 130, depending on how much money is income to the city after the 350 is paid to the port, that purchasing power is going to erode over time. So, 10 years into it, that 135,000 is going to fund a smaller project. 2 more points. One, on the school, I think that's why it's very important to get some sort of written confirmation, because at 135,000, that will likely fund one project, and it'll be hard to imagine that the school's now 5-year tradition or ability to make improvements in the school facilities, that may be challenged a little bit if you want to look at it that way. So there is the available extra funds will shrink. That's why I really believe that a business model does not preclude an approach that allows Galleon area citizens a free, okay, I hear that free isn't free, but I really believe that with those kinds of limits, that it's a good idea to look at an approach that limits very much Galleon citizens the expense that they're going to have to use the facility. So, thanks.
Rod, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thanks. I just unmute myself. I just had a couple quick questions. So these facilities, I know you talked about the one in Coshocton, and I know there's like Bo Jackson Elite down in Dublin. Sandusky has something. Are there any others close to us that has a facility similar to this? And how long have they been in business? Like the Coshocton one, and has any of them ever failed? So that's what, I got. I know I've seen, me and Gary coached baseball and stuff. I remember when our kids were little, I went up to that Geauga on the lake. That was like, holy cow, I'd never seen anything like this, but I know this is a small portion of that. So it's exciting. So just wanted to ask.
I think you nailed them pretty much, Rod. And I would say that this facility isn't designed to be like Spire, the one up by Geauga on the lake. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
tremendously bigger. So is the Sports Force. This facility, I compare it to, you know, the way you measure business, small, medium, and large. This is at that kind of crossover of small to medium. And I think that's important from a customer standpoint as well. Having coached baseball and having managed kind of the expenses to the players and the families, you usually choose one of those types of facility, a Sports Force in Indiana, Kentucky, that tend to be much more expensive, maybe a bigger venue, but you also don't go to the same one every year. You rotate those. So you may only hit one every 5 years, but you always have your bread and butter facilities that you're going to go to that have a cost affordable entry fee. It's affordable for families to come to those communities, to stay, to eat, unlike a lot of the metro areas. And families tend to like that. And those are the ones you go year after year after year. So the business model is really built around being one of those venues that each and every year a team is going to plan on as part of their schedule.
I'm sorry, anybody?
I was gonna.
Go ahead.
You got a question? I'm gonna say with the comps that have been used, the ones that Rod just mentioned that have been frequently used, it's important to note that this is the most publicly funded of all of these facilities. Bo Jackson private facility, really it's a Cedar Point thing up in Sandusky. It's a 501c3 in Coshocton, but it's not funded by the city of or the Port Authority. So when you look at the way the limitations and opportunities for funding, this makes this a little bit different. The floor space, the programming, if you will, is similar to some of those other places, but the putting together the funding puzzle is a little more, I would say, complicated, and it's a little bit bigger challenge for us. So thanks, Mike.
Sure. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I just have a what if question for Gary or Chad, either one. Okay, so if the city said, okay, we'll go for the 5 million from the freeze fund, and the rest of the 7 million that you're short, what if you do not get that? Then what happens?
I think the answer is pretty easy. I think initially we don't take the $5 million from the freeze fund. You know, that's to Gary's point. We see this as the key domino to make the rest of that work. And if the rest of that falls through, then we got to go back to the drawing board. We got to go find it again. And if we can find it, great. Maybe we look at moving forward in the future. But we're not asking you to write us, write the check right now and say, here's your $5 million. Have at it. This is really, we're looking for a commitment from council to say we support this project. If asked and the port's able to get the rest of the funding, we're going to commit the $5 million as an ask from the freeze fund. That's really what we're asking here. Gary, would you add anything else to that?
I think that's spot on. I said earlier, this we're the city, and it's meant to work arm in arm, and it is a big lift, and we need you guys to fully understand, and we need to get answers for those questions that we're not answering to your fullest understanding, and that's where we've been from the beginning. If we run into an obstacle, we go another direction. The end destination is to build this facility, increase the economic development, the growth in this community. There's multiple lanes to get to it. And we're going to have to jump lanes at different times. But I think this is the most critical lane that needs a commitment from, so that we can continue to knock down the rest of the dominoes.
If I could, I would like to there's sort of a piggyback or combo of one of the mayor's comments and one of Mike's questions from how this benefits maybe the youth of Galion and the schools all in one. Okay. So we have to remember that this facility is going to be open pretty much for use by the community. I mean, from Monday through Friday. Travel tournaments aren't coming in Monday through Friday, right? This is a tremendous opportunity for the schools to be able to use these facilities for their athletic endeavors or their cheerleading endeavors or whatever you might want to call it. that is a benefit, direct benefit to the youth of Galion. If you look, for example, what Shelby is proposing right now, doing the school system in Shelby is proposing building a $5 million auxiliary sports facility. So if we're building this, then the schools don't have to do that. They are, and I can tell you just from personal experience, they are out of space. They don't have gym space. They don't, especially with COVID this year, it was, every game had to be contested at the high school. It was an absolute nightmare. This facility would provide an enormous benefit to the schools and to the youth of Galion moving forward.
Well, let me jump on that, Chad. First of all, the Shelby thing is kind of not the same because they are actually using money that was part of a build program that they, and I don't know all the actual particulars other than that they had extra money from that grant or whatever they got. So if that in itself, they don't have the concerns by using this as we would here in this case. The other thing is, as been mentioned several times, is essentially the hint I'm getting is that the citizens of Galion, including the schools, will get charged for this. So it's not a freebie, and I do use the word freebie because as far as I'm concerned, the freeze money right now, which built the splash park, that's a freebie. That built the $500,000 playground unit, that's a freebie for them. So that's part of where I'm being very cautious. The other thing is too, I think this all needs to be in perspective too, that say, for example, this gets built, okay, and it goes south, okay. The citizens of Galion are probably end up going to be on the hook for those expenses. I mean, that's the fact of life. The port may be running it or whatever, but as Gary said, they're an entity of the city, which means it's going to be the city, the citizens who's put in $5 million, and then they're going to have to pay for whatever if this thing goes south. I know I heard on the Q&A from the can't think of the name now, but anyway, the Q&A that went through that, well, if it goes south, we can, maybe be able to, still have the building. Sorry, but that's not a good answer. We've got buildings. Matter of fact, we're in the process now of tearing one down, which will be developed, thank goodness. And I'm very encouraged by that. So that's kind of where, in my respect, I'm approaching it. Also, the other thing is I'm representing the citizens of the Third Ward. Now, not many of those folks go to the Y. They obviously are hardworking individuals. They don't have necessarily the money to spend for a membership. So this is going to be something that will impact them directly. Because again, like I mentioned, going to the Splash Park or any other programs, which we had quite a few at the Parks meeting, that those are all going to be freebies. The bike trail is a freebie. So, I mean, that's.
I got a question about your freebie comments though. So when there's maintenance that needs done, if I understand it correctly, there's no charge to go to the splash park, correct?
Correct.
So when there is a, concrete repair or, I'm not sure if the Y is paid to oversee that, but if they're paid, who's paying that? Because it's not free. I know the people going in aren't paying, but who's paying it?
No, the citizens do pay that also.
Oh, so it's not a freebie.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I would say that that's counterproductive and argumentative. And that comes from somebody who likes to stir it up. I don't want to go there. I want to go, if I could, Mike, to a comment that needs to be the other side. If it goes well and this pro forma does pan out, one comment that Gary made that I absolutely disagree, and it's the first time I've heard, is that somehow the Port Authority is going to take profits and put them into the city parks. Like that's a lot of good ideas, Gary. That's a bad one. What you need to do is we need to come up with a plan that the port begins to assume some of that debt service in maybe beginning year 5. So as the operations generate more cash than expenses, I think it's almost a given that those profits, quote unquote profits, are going to go to retiring that debt service. That addresses the shrinkage that you're going to see in the purchasing power of the residual freeze funds. And it also has the port, which sees itself as the owner of this business, paying something for it. And so I very, very much believe, I think there's a good chance. I think odds are that this facility will generate some income over expenses. So I'm not in that camp that thinks, well, it'll go bust and the operations will come rolling back to the city. I want to guarantee more on the profits, not going to the operator, particularly if we go to a contract operator that's headquartered out of state.
Well, thanks for going positive, Tom. I do appreciate that, and I agree. And I'm not opposed to the money going to the debt service. It's really 6-1, half a dozen of another. So I think either way, the ability of profits to flow back will be what I'm really saying is the important aspect.
Yeah, I want a real close. I think the city needs to engage. We maybe talk about that tomorrow night, like in the development of the operating plan, a little bit more involvement in who is decided to operate it. And so I think that would be an important step forward in building that partnership relationship between the city and the port. And I'd say right off the top, it'd be difficult for me to be as enthusiastic about the consultant that did the pro forma as some of the other people who've become real familiar with the pro forma. I think the YMCA needs to be brought into that discussion as an operator, as a potential operator, particularly if they could run some of their programs through this facility to build a strong partnership instead of running the risk of having friction between the YMCA and this facility. I mean, after all, Terry was one of the first people on the equivalent of the Lewis and Clark expedition. So the Y was involved in this right from the start. We probably need to bring them back into that. So thank you for letting me add those comments.
And Mike, I would just add to Tom's point, I think the port board is all in agreement of contributing those, revenues back for the debt service. I mean, that's what it should do. Okay. It should lessen that burden on the city. And to the whole discussion on the free versus charging citizens, I know you have my commitment to, make that as little as absolutely possible. It does, obviously, if we're turning the lights on and opening it up and staffing it on a Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, there are costs associated with that. So, we do have to look at that from that perspective, but I'm not talking about a monthly membership fee like you would see at the YMCA or something like that. You're talking more like, hey, if I want to take my buddies out there and reserve a court for an hour on a Sunday evening to play basketball, maybe we throw $10 or $20 or something like that at it for a month or a week or whatever it might be. We don't have those final numbers. We don't have the level of specificity we need right now to say what that's going to be. I think, though, that the port all has a commitment to make sure that there's little cost as possible to citizens and to the schools especially when it's, galleon, when we're talking about galleon, because the freeze funds would generally be used for their benefit. So I hear you, we would normally use those monies for parks and recreation. Those citizens benefit, they should benefit from this too. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. But I also don't want to get to year 5 and say we don't have money to run this facility anymore. Does that make sense?
Oh, I understand. No, I understand that. Yeah,
Okay.
I understand. Well, it's been about an hour and a half, everyone. Is there any other questions out there for?
I have one.
Go ahead, Ken.
When we discussed this before one-on-one, I never heard of a liquor license. I don't believe we should have liquor or alcohol served on them premises. And I know you beer drinkers, I got a liquor license, but I don't drink. But
Yeah.
I don't think it should be youth involved and their parents sitting there and they don't want to be there and drink some beer and then drive their kids home. I don't think we should be part of that. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Just have one really simple question. Is there going to be an elevator in it? Is it going to be like ADA accessible?
Yes.
All right, that I think is a
That's why
really
there's bathrooms on the mezzanine too. The bathrooms on the mezzanine are handicap accessible as well.
okay.
For that reason.
That was one thing that I didn't ask whenever I was going through my list of facility questions. So thank you.
Okay, Tammy?
I also have just one real quick question, and I'm going all the way back to when Rodney was talking. You were talking about a facility in Dublin. Is that the same one that was built, that's at like the Polaris area? Or is that one in the same facility?
I think it's in the Hilliard, Dublin area. I don't think it's in Polaris. So it's right in that, in between, right in there. Can't remember the address. It's called Bo Jackson Elite. They have workout facilities, indoor baseball and everything in that place. So if you want to know.
It's an inflatable dome, Tammy. So
Yeah.
won't, that's kind of like a different model of the same thing. I don't want to start changing off of the footprint that's been developing, but yeah, you'll see that out there. There's some other domes.
Am I thinking of something completely different? Or are we talking, that's, I'm just trying to figure out if I'm talking about the same thing. Does anybody know about one that was in Polaris?
Yeah, that's one's being proposed.
Oh, it's not built yet.
No, it's Tammy, this is Thomas. If I could just interject really quick, Mike.
Sure, go ahead.
It's about ready to open. It's in the former Sears spot at Polaris Fashion Place Mall.
Okay.
I know nothing more about it in terms of size or anything like that.
Okay, because I looked that up, but I didn't know if you guys, we were talking about the same thing. Okay. And then I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the Port Authority coming this, and speaking with us all together. And I know that you guys end up answering the same questions over and over and over again, but it is really nice for all of us to be together and be able to hear all the answers together. And even though I know that sometimes they get repeated more, but it is really helpful for all of us. So I just wanted to extend a thank you to you guys for taking the time to meet with us and get some of these questions answered. And I'm sure we'll have even more for you tomorrow. So thank you.
Tom, did you have a question? I'm sorry. Tom, did you have a question?
Go. I think we got a lot of ground covered. Hopefully everyone on council that had been, at the periphery of some of these questions and answers and seen the chamber presentation got a chance to answer those, answer their questions. And nope, I appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Doc, did you have a question?
No question, just a comment. Ken, I completely agree with you, that statement earlier that you had
Thank you.
about the beer.
Thank you.
Oh, the graders are going under because you guys went and
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the port? Well, piggyback on Tammy, you kind of took my thunder away there, but yeah, I would like to thank you for joining us tonight and having this discussion. I'm sure tomorrow night, with the focus more on the operational side of this, that there will probably be questions that we'll think of tonight that certainly we'll bring up. So, but again, thank you for coming tonight and being a part of this. I want to thank everyone that has been a part of the mayor, Thomas, everyone that's on this call. So, and with that, since this is a committee of the whole, I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion to adjourn from Mark Triplett and a second from Ken Bodkins. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I hear a lot of ayes, so the ayes have it. We are adjourned at 9:02. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. See you.